Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Hi everybody, welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to be talking about Midwinter.
Thank God that's over.
Yeah. The spring has finally sprung here in lovely West Virginia. It's been in the 60s. Hopefully it will remain that way.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite midwinter activity in the darkest, deepest nights of winter? What do you like to do?
I like to be indoors, drinking, and playing video games. That's what I like to do.
Sounds
That's what I like to do.
me.
I got to do that not very often, but I don't like the winter. I don't like the cold. I can tell you my least favorite thing to do in the midwinter. It's 6 a.m., right? Mm-hmm. You get up, it's still dark, and you got to go out to start the car, right? And then what do? You got to shave that ice off the car. Mm-hmm. That's the worst. That's the dirt worst. And then you're going to work as an added bonus.
Right.
It's just like,
Now, in your previous vehicle, it did not have heat, right? So you had to warm yourself with the warmth of the cigarette lighter, right?
Well, yes, that's true. My truck had no heat.
Did you ever employ that at the same time as you were scraping the windows? Did you have the cigarette lighter in one hand?
Well, it didn't extend that long. The gimmick, the little heat gimmick, and it didn't work that well, both.
I always pictured that you were physically like pushing in the cigarette lighter.
What do you mean, like I was holding the cigarette lighter?
Next to your hand. Yeah, that was not the case, huh?
Check that one off the list. There's another one.
All right, Aaron. Well, it's been a big week here in the world of everythingamiga.com. Dreamcatcher has been back at the writer's block. No, that's like the running block.
He's been at the video block this time around.
So why don't you tell us what he's been doing over on the side here?
The Dreamcatcher has posted the script from his YouTube video on the gold of the Aztecs. Classic Amiga game. This is one I actually know about, and of course it's the usual in-depth stuff. He goes into just a little throwdown on the video. Have you ever played this particular one?
I haven't played this one.
This is one I heard about a long time ago. It's okay. It's got some pretty good graphics on it. I'll be honest, I haven't played it for a zillion years. But it's a pretty good looking little gimmick, and of course Dreamcatcher is all up in it. It's funny, I'm looking at his script here, and of course he couldn't just put the picture, or couldn't just put the words. He's got the pictures and stuff, so it's pretty much just like any other Dreamcatcher story. It's top shelf. So, and again, as I say every week, go check out his channel. He's always got good stuff on there. So that one's up. That was good to go.
The Dreamcatcher YouTube channel. All right, and well, this week in the world of Amiga news, we've got a couple big stories for you. This first one is a new shooter that has just been released. This comes to us courtesy from our buddy Neil over at Indie Retro News. This game is called Kobo Deluxe, and this is, I guess this was a previously existing shooter that has just gotten an Amiga 68K port. Okay, and this game looks great, Aaron.
Have you heard of this one before?
I've not heard of this one, but I had a chance to check out this video, and man, this game looks great. I mean, it looks like it's right out of the arcade. It runs super, super fast. It's a multi-directional scrolling shooter. What's an arcade game that does this? Was it? I
always want to say it's Vanguard, and Vanguard sort of does it. But the one we're thinking of is. Oh boy, what is it? It's the one where you. What's the one where you go into the little space stations and blow them up? It's that one.
That's what I'm thinking of. So
that's
anyway,
a fun game too. I like that.
Chat, you can help us out if you know what we're talking about. But anyway, this Kobo Deluxe, it is free. You can check it out, and it has been ported to lots of different stuff. And finally, if you have, I guess you need 16 megs of RAM.
And basically, this won't run on anyone's. That's the
right.
That was I was going to say. I didn't want to poo-poo on your party. This won't run on hardly anything. You have to have a. It says anytime you see vampire recommended, you got problems.
That's right. That's right.
But it does look great. I mean, it looks really good. And what it was ported from, I know not. Does it say in there what it was ported from?
I don't think so. But anyway, you can check out the link over on gather.com. You can click on the link in the show notes and it'll take you right there. Up next, Aaron, the good times have finally come to an end. over the past several months, we've been telling you all about this guy, Earrock, the man behind the CD32 and beer compilations. He has released the final one of these. So it's been a long road, Aaron.
He's released a ton of these things, too.
It seems like almost every week, at least every other week, he's got a full list of titles. And this is really a top shelf thing, because essentially what he's done is he's taken all of these Amiga games, converted them so they'll run off a single menu from your CD32. So I can think of no better way to spend an evening than to get a buddy, get your CD32. Now, the CD32, does it have 2 controller ports? I always forget about this.
Absolutely, of course.
It wasn't one of those systems.
No. Yeah, I will say, if this is the release to get to this, and I'll tell you why. This is the culmination of all the other releases in the CD32 and beer family. All of them smashed together with fixes. Also included in this one are, which have just came out recently, are Barbarian Plus, which I like Barbarian Plus, and Tanks Furry, which is another game that just came out fairly recently. And so that means you've got, I think it's a couple hundred games on this thing. That's easy money right there. That's why I always say, CD32, for bang for your buck console, there you go. That's a hefty total games. And we do appreciate him for doing that. He had a real good run. Hopefully he's not out of the CD32 business. He's just out of the CD32 and beer business.
I was going to say he might have just hit the wall where there are no more games left to port.
Yeah, right on. That's right. But that's great. I'm going to be pulling this one down as soon as I get back to the hizzy.
Yeah. All right, Aaron. That's kind of a slow news week here.
We should probably just a quick update on the Amiga Power Kickstarter.
Right.
It's doing well. I haven't checked it today. Let's have a look at it real quick.
Right now. So it looks like they are getting closer.
Yeah. So with 22 days to go, he has rolled this thing up to 16K out of 20. Looks good, Boat.
Yeah.
Looks good. I haven't even donated our money to it, which we're gonna get on this action.
Absolutely.
So because I gotta get some tunes. So if you have not been listening, the Amiga Power album is up on the Kickstarter. We've got it linked off our news page. And it looks to be a real good album. So if you want to hear some good tunes, lend this thing your support. It's got a nice booklet with it. It's all the songs are picked by some of the people that worked at Amiga Power, some of the luminaries, some of the top shelf musicians that work on Amiga games are involved, and their tunes from the games are involved. So it's going to be awesome.
I always like to see the top pledges on this, and it looks like. Some of these are already on the $85 Pledge of Champions. You get everything. I think he comes to your house and he pushes play on the CD player for you. So this looks real awesome. Like I said, we are going to support this. So give it your love. Aaron, let's talk about this week's Amiga game, Midwinter.
You know, I'd not heard of this one, Bo. Had you? I'd not heard of it. I had heard of it, but I'd not played it, and I had forgotten it existed until it.
I had never heard of it at all, ever.
I had listened to, I'm a big retro gaming radio fan from back in the day, and Cheddar Monroe talked about this on one of his shows because of the novella that comes with this game. I looked high and low to try to find. I would like to have read this. I couldn't find it.
It's funny. I was on my stream. Ricky, I think, was telling me the same thing. He said, you got to read this novel, and I looked on Hall of Light, looked on Lemon Amiga, couldn't find it.
I looked in nefarious places for it. I couldn't find it either. So hey, if somebody's got this out here, get with me in the Discord and get me in the loop, because Shane said it was a really good book. So I'd like to, but I did thankfully I got the vibe of the book from reading some other stuff. So let's talk Midwinter here, Boat. This came out on the Amiga in 1990. Now, this came out a little bit earlier on a few other versions, which we'll get to, but Amiga's came out a little like a year or so later. This shipped on one disc. Pretty impressive. I mean, when you sit down and play it, I thought.
No question.
Yeah. This was developed by an outfit called Maelstrom. They didn't do a ton on the Amiga. They did a game called Grimblood. They did Midwinter 2. A game called Space Cutter and Whirligig, which I like that one. And published by Microplay. Of course, this is a one-player sort of action, let's call it action strategy RPG. It's a triple, I think. That sounds about right. This was designed by a fellow named Mike Singleton. Now, him I had heard of, but it was actually I'd heard of him for a game called Lords of Midnight, which I'd heard a lot about.
He's the guy. He's the guy behind this game.
Yes.
No idea.
Singleton was a British designer who worked mostly on the Spectrum. Now, most of these titles don't mean anything to me. Really, none of them do, but I've heard of some of them by reputation. Amongst the titles he worked on were Lords of Midnight, Doom Dark's Revenge.
That's the sequel.
Dark Scepter, and War in Middle Earth. Which that one,
we actually have that.
Yeah, I think it's at my house. You know what this guy did before he got into game making? English teacher.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this guy's actually got quite a rep. And unfortunately, he passed away from cancer in 2012, age 61. But he was a very popular fellow, and he had a real good rep. And you could tell part of the reason for his rep in this game, because this is certainly not a run-of-the-mill game.
No,
we'll just put it that way. There's a lot going on here. Most of the people that worked on this worked on every game I mentioned from Maelstrom, so I'm assuming they probably were Maelstrom, effectively. So this got converted over to the Atari ST and to PC, DOS. Again, I know the Amiga version wasn't the first one. I think the DOS version was first. Don't hold me to that because I have no way of knowing.
Yeah, you're right. The DOS version was first. It was
Did you try this in DOS, by the way?
No, only played the Amiga version. I think the DOS version was released in '89.
Yeah. So let's talk about this game and feel free to stop me when I screw up, because this game is complicated and I really had to sit down and try to figure out what in the heck was going on. This is the kind of game you don't play before looking at the documentation.
Right.
So the backstory in this game is summed up, and again, in a novella that came with the game, and it was and just to summarize the novella, because you sort of have to know it to understand what's going on. It's 2099, and there's an ice covering the entire world. It's ice and snow. All right. Basically, long story short, a meteor hit Burma in 2040 and caused an impact winter. It caused global cooling, the population decline because of famine. And so this game follows an island called Midwinter Island, and basically there's a local militia called the Free Village Peace Force.
Okay.
All right, that's which you see this in the game, the FVPF. And a fellow named General Masters is attempting to take over the island that you're on by force.
Right.
So the object of this game is to rally your forces by recruiting local persons on the island to your cause, and at the same time, basically through guerrilla warfare, prevent the takeover of the island from this guy. Is that basically the way you read
it? That's exactly right.
So that in itself is pretty complex. Any game that comes with its own small book is pretty good. I mean that's someone put some thought into it. Let's put it that way. So basically, you start out as a fellow who is going around and trying to recruit these people. There are tons and tons of characters, and I didn't write them down. I mean, there's I think there's 32 different people you're going to talk to in this. You start off as Stark and John Stark, and you are presented with your guy. You've a couple of different options on controls. There's a training game, then just play the game. That's pretty much the opening menu. There's not much to it. I played with the mouse. I'm guessing you probably played with the mouse too.
The instructions recommend that you play with.
Well,
the mouse.
I didn't. I read some reviews of this game and some facts about it that said don't even bother with anything but the mouse. Yeah. And after playing it for 2 seconds, you can see why. So basically, and again, jump in here if I did it differently than you did. You start off with a map, and this map will tell you it's a map of the island. It will show. Among the many things it shows are the enemy and people that you can contact, right? And you are tasked with going to recruit these people. Now, that doesn't sound too complicated, but the game has a unique way of doing turns and time. And that is, you have basically 2 hours to perform a task. At that point, the 2 hours is up, and then basically you move on to the next turn.
Your next, if you have multiple people in your party.
That's right. So, for example, if you go find and recruit another fellow within the first 2 hours, you will then be able to use either one of them for the next 2 hours. Mm-hmm. All right. So basically, what the game is trying to simulate here is simultaneous island-wide action.
Right.
Okay. So if you have 10 recruits, which I never got that many, but if you did, you would have 10 people doing 10 different things all over the island. Mm-hmm. Now, that in itself is pretty complex, but there's more. Each person that you recruit has a specific skill set. Mm-hmm. They will be better at some things than they are others. The guy you start with, Stark, is pretty good at everything and extremely good at a couple of things. But other people may be good at, like, I don't know, demolitions, for example. And that person will be handy to use for other certain things. So why don't you talk about how you actually get to the people?
Okay, so you are started at a random place on the island at the beginning of every game. So sometimes you'll be right in the thick of things. Sometimes you'll be on a more remote area. And what you have to do is you have to use the map to determine the location of your nearest person. The game basically tells you, the instruction manual, apart from the novella, is not very long. This is not like Sim Life or
no.
Or in one of those games where you have a 40-page manual. I mean, this manual might be 10 pages. And what it basically tells you is that, listen, you need to find other people. Those people need to recruit other people so you can start winning the island back for Team You Guys, and away from this guy that is trying to take over the island. Masters, yeah. Right. So this is where the game kind of it's where the ideas that were in the genesis of this game kind of outstrip the execution. Because one thing you'll notice is that right off the bat, you're being attacked. Unless you turn off the mortars and the bombers, your entire existence in this game, you're going to be relentlessly attacked by these planes, by other snow crawler type things.
That is one of the options on the main menu, which I always turned off.
So if you turn that off, then the game is basically you driving around, finding people, having them join your team, and you can go around and you can blow up different buildings. Okay, you don't have to do any of that. The enemy headquarters in this game, your only objective is to destroy the enemy headquarters. The enemy headquarters is located in this southeastern, I believe, part of the island. And once you blow that up, then you've beaten the game. So you can literally start the game, find yourself a fox, one of these snow speeder things, go to that building, blow it up, and win the game without recruiting a single person.
Now, see, I read that you could do that.
Yeah.
But I didn't do it because I knew I didn't want to, but I mean, I read that and people did complain.
Right. So it makes you wonder, what the whole point of the rest of this stuff is. Now, once you do recruit other people, you'll notice, like you said, they have all of these different skills and all these different things. But I never ran into a situation where it was like I was trying to blow up a building with somebody and they didn't have a high enough demolition ranking to blow up the building. It seemed like that just always happened.
I believe, anytime you do something, for example, I'll give you a couple examples of how I think it works. Because this is complicated. Mm-hmm. For example, if you go to fix one of the vehicles, if you're using a guy who's particularly proficient at that sort of thing, it will take less time.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And I think the people can do these things, but I think it will take more time. Something else that is an interesting element to the game is the relationships that the people you recruit have with you, and of course you're all of them. So their interplay is interesting. Mm-hmm. Now, I did not ever recruit everyone in the game. I don't know how many.
Oh, me neither.
I mean, I recruited I could recruit 10 people. I think the most people I ever had on at once was like 12 people. And because I'm not gonna lie to you, it took me a while to get stuck in on this thing. When it starts up, I was just like, it's almost overwhelming.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff going on.
And this is another one of those games where they try and explain all of the game concepts and icons. And sometimes the icons are indicative of what you think they might be, and sometimes they're not. And
Right.
even just maneuvering around the screen, your basic action screen, can sometimes be difficult.
But the relationships you have with the recruits, for example, if you're playing Stark at the beginning, there's a couple people that straight up don't like him. So when you get a strike, when you try to recruit them, they don't, it's
Right,
not happening.
and what I've read is that the key is to get the girls to do most of the recruiting.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And some people require other specific people to recruit them. And so it's you have to when you get these other people, there's a big long written setup. Well, it talks about them. It says, here's what's going on with this guy. And so you have to kind of pay attention a little bit. Now, it didn't become a super hassle for me because I didn't get super far in. But I mean, if you're trying to get every guy and do all these different things at once, you're going to have to pay attention to who you're recruiting when.
Right.
We haven't touched on how you travel visually. And what you do is, and Boat sort of mentioned it in passing, once you've determined where you want to go, and maybe you're going to recruit someone, or maybe you're going to blow something up or whatever, then you go to basically the action screen. Mm-hmm. Now the action screen it's just usually the way the Amiga is used for rendering 3D. The actual visual window is smaller. Mm-hmm. There are multiple ways to move around. Of course there's skiing. Everything's snow, so there's skiing. Then there's a snowmobiles of various sorts of, like Boat said, there's a fox, there's a wolf, and a cat that you can use. There's also a cable car. I don't know if you ever took one of those.
Yep.
That's pretty cool, I thought.
Yep.
And there's also hang gliding. Now, hang gliding I didn't get. I mean, I thought I tried it for fun, and I
died immediately. I just crashed.
And I read some tutorials, and they also said hang gliding was extremely difficult. Mm-hmm. So your mileage may vary.
But it's neat that it's in there.
Yeah. And so when you're in these three-dimensional screens, for example, if you're skiing, you will basically be restricted to a viewport the size of ski goggles on the screen. It's plenty to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And then you will go, and movement's kind of funky when you're skiing because you sort of take the mouse and kind of got to go forward. It works, but I guess my first big gripe with the game was getting around on the skis was a pain in the butt.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was meant to be a pain in the butt, like to give you more of an incentive to go and get a better vehicle. But the terrain in this game, one of the big features of the world map, which is really the nexus of everything, is that it gives you the topography, and you can see that there are some very high peaks in this game that you've got to kind of negotiate. And so skiing is definitely difficult.
And driving a vehicle is equally as difficult because did you ever have a vehicle in this that you didn't wreck?
No.
I wrecked every single one.
Yeah.
Because you'll be bebopping along, I'm going 40 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. And then when you wreck, you also can get hurt. Mm-hmm. So as far as I can tell, you can't be killed.
Right.
But you can be mauled.
And the way that it works you kind of have you've got like a fatigue meter, and then you also have are your bones broken?
Yeah.
Like that sort of a thing. And if you get kind of an outline of your body in one of the screens in your information screen, and if it's orange, like if your head is orange, that means your head is not broken, it can be repaired. But if your head is red, you can continue on, but you're in a bad way.
When you're skiing, it kind of gives you a figurine of yourself as a skier, just kind of like in mid ski.
Right.
And as you go, it will drain more and more or fill up. Basically, there's a meter that gets smaller and smaller until eventually, if you're still skiing when the thing runs out, you just basically flop over because you're unconscious, you're tired, you have to rest.
If you turn off the mortars and the bombers at the beginning, you can kind of take your time and this is just another thing that's just kind of weird about this game. It's like the guy wants there to be conflict, but he also gives you the opportunity to turn it off. I think probably a better happy medium would be, put some planes on the island, but don't make them constantly attack you every single time. It's also sort of wacky that in this game, you can take multiple missiles and rounds from this plane right in the face and live to fight another day. But one well-timed shot from your rifle can bring down this plane.
Yeah, so. I'll be honest with you. I played with the planes and someone one time, and I turned them off. I was like, I don't need this. So, like I said, so let's put it in perspective. You find where you want to go on the map. You find where your nearest contacts are. You travel to where you want to go, and along the way, you may come across the enemy. Right. So what do? Well, you attack that sucker. Right. Grenades. Just hit the old space bar, toss a grenade on, blow them up. It's good times.
Right.
Eventually, if you get to where you're going to, you'll get there. Now, normally, your contact will be in like some sort of facility, right? And there are various facilities rendered in different ways throughout the land, right?
And they're all drawn in 3D.
Yeah, and this game has that, wireframe 3D thing going
Virtual
on.
fighter type thing.
I thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Actually, I was pretty impressed with the way it looked.
It really reminded me of that game Hunter.
It did. It was. I think the rest were better, but yeah, it was good. And it ran. I ran on the 1200. It ran okay. I've heard mixed results on slower stuff, but it ran okay.
I can't imagine that this would be pleasant to play on anything slower than a 1200.
And I ran it on emulated, and it ran fine as well.
Yeah.
But yeah. So either way, you're good to go. When you wreck your vehicle, there's there's a little animation of the things falling over. So there's some animation that if you blow up a building.
I do like when you mount the skis for the first time, you get a little still shot of you on the skis looking awesome. It's a very 80s kind of thing.
So when you get to a facility, there'll be various things that you can come across when you're there. A garage, a police station, store.
There's a church.
There's several different things, and some of these places are more industrially. And then you can go in and try to recruit the person, talk to them, and it'll say like, I can't wait to join your merry band, or like, screw you, basically. Again, it's basically based on what your character's interaction with this person's been in the past. Like, he's got a girlfriend, he's got a girl that's got a crush on him, they don't get along, blah blah blah. And it goes on down the line. Like I said, 32 guys. I mean, think about it, that's astounding.
I mean, you could tell that. He probably wishes that, I wonder if he ever thought to himself, how many people truly explored this world that I've created for myself, and how many people figured out they could beat it right away and then never went back to it?
Well, I don't wonder how long it took before that information got out.
Well, I mean, the enemy headquarters is, it's there on the map, and, I don't know.
Yeah, so, like Boat said, theoretically, when you gather enough forces and you've got enough stuff going on, you can make the final assault, which I never did. I never got that far. What did you think of this simultaneous? Because there's a synchronized watch sort of screen, and then you go, and you're going to pick these guys, and it's all happening at once. What did you think about the concept of playing 6, 10, 12, 20 people that were doing simultaneous acts?
On the one hand, it's very ambitious. I didn't understand, on movies and stuff, whenever everybody says synchronized watches, I never understood what that meant, and it always kind of bothered me that I never understood what it meant. In this game, I think, unless you're keeping careful notes about what every person is doing, because the landscape, as you look out across, whether you're on a snowmobile or skis or whatever, it all looks the same. So you're not going to be using any visual clues to remember what these guys are supposed to be doing.
Right.
So you kind of almost have to keep a notebook next to you and be like, okay, Maria is going to go over here and she's going to do this thing. And I can only imagine, I never got to the point where I was managing a huge team, but it seems like it would be a lot of work for maybe what would be a little reward. It would have been nice if they would have put your team members on the map in a way that you could either putting their names on there or making a different icon where you could just see where everybody was, and when you hovered over them, you could see who that person was. But anyway, they didn't.
Different time, too. I want to specify one thing when we talk about this. I feel like we've dipped the toe in the pool of this game because there is depth here that I did not perceive. I've read about it, but I did not perceive. I mean, you're talking about missions and stuff in this that I never saw. Radio jamming and demolition missions and the combat stuff that I just didn't get to.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that this game could have benefited from almost kind of a little mini game instead of like whenever you demolish the building, instead of just clicking on a thing that says demolish, maybe launching into sort of a north and south style mini action game where you have to run into the building and place the explosives?
Well, I mean, I might think that's more fun, but I don't think it would fit the game, to be honest with you. For what he was going for something here. Something else I was never quite sure of is how the things I was doing simultaneously was affecting the overall game. Like I never knew exactly what my actions were causing to happen.
Yeah, it's almost as if there is a screen where you can see how many facilities the enemy currently holds. Right. You can watch those numbers go down. But it would be nice to see almost like a graph or something like you get in SimCity as you start to retake the island, colors start to shift, or you get some sort of, visual feedback of that.
I will say there are lots of this game that I like. I'll tell you, when I first started playing this, I was like, it was tough. It was tough sledding, no pun intended. But in a small way, there were parts of this I enjoyed. And one thing I did like was when you're going out to meet a teammate or to take care of business somewhere, and you're out in the white, you did get this feeling of isolation that worked.
Yeah.
And the skiing and stuff worked. I did not like the controls of the skier. Okay, but when I got going in the right direction, it was very gratifying to see the place you were heading for come up over the, over the hill.
and you do have to, you go to your main map and you kind of set a heading. I'm going to head southeast, and then you kind of have to track it on the mini map. I like the way that the locations do pop up as you traverse to them. And when you did reach a place, you felt like an accomplishment. I mean, there's no fast travel in this thing.
And if you run out of energy right before you get to the facility, you're screwed.
Yep.
You just fall over. Now, something else occasionally you'll have to, and this happened to me a couple times, you would get to a place to meet a contact, and he was captured. You had to blow him out of there.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. The heads-up display and stuff are pretty useful. I mean, there's a lot of gauges and gadgets. And basically a lot of it's there just to help you steer your skier around. So there are parts of it I liked. I would have liked the control to be a little bit better on the skier. And you also, it was real easy to wreck that skier. Even if we were not on the vehicle, just on skis, you could still wreck. I also would occasionally, I'd get so excited that I was going to find the building that I'd ram into it.
Oh yeah.
Stupid guy style.
I used to not know, I think it's X that takes you to that screen. I used to just ram into the building because I knew that would take me to the screen that I needed to get to.
Vintage boat.
Right.
You were always the agony of defeat.
It's funny. I used to do the same thing with my lawn tractor in my garage. Like with my car, I used to park my lawnmower nose out, and I would know that I'd pulled my car far enough in that the garage door wouldn't hit the back of my car if I just gave a little love tap on the nose of the thing. And then Eve saw me do that, and she's like, "You're wrecking the mower. Stop doing that."
Thank God for Eve. The old man. We had a ride and mower at Mom and Dad's house. The old man ran over. This actually can happen. Who knew? He ran over a rake and knocked himself out.
Oh my gosh!
And the tractor just kept on going.
Oh, so this was not one of the ones that the new
old
ones
school.
where yeah.
So that stuff can happen. So control an issue. Now, I will say this game had really no music and very little sound. Again, it was on one disc, and so I'm sure they were smashing everything they could possibly fit on this disc in there, but a little ambient noise when you're out there.
Well, there is ambient noise.
I mean, sound. I mean, like ambient music, some kind of like atmospheric tune.
The Amiga has a tenuous relationship with in-game music.
Which is hilarious considering it's a musical abilities. It doesn't make a lick of sense. This game, like I said, it sort of had a sequel. I've heard this referred to as a spiritual sequel, if not, but I mean, it's called Midwinter 2 Flames of Freedom, or just Flames of Freedom. I didn't look at it. I know I've heard that it addressed some things and made them better, but I have to have a look at it sometime. So I mean, I think there's a lot of game here. I think it's we run into a lot of these games where maybe the interface could have been better, but it's it's 1990,
right?
And this is the way this is cutting edge at the time. But this is one that probably, if you were to remake it or modernize it, you could probably get something out of it. I mean, aside from the fact you could update the engines and whatnot. And I mean, it's actually, and I would like to have, like I said, a deeper understanding of how your actions affect the overall map and what's going on. I mean, it's a tough one. Like I said, I feel like I scratched the surface on this one. I mean, I think I got it, but not fully got it. You know what I mean? A lot of people enjoyed this game, however. Lemon, the folks over there, gave it an 8.16, which is a very good score. The reviews for this thing were pretty good, Bo. Amiga Action gave it an 86. Now, Amiga Computing looked at it in 93. A second look, and they devalued their original 1990 score from 96 to 60.
Wow.
So it's always funny when they do that. Amiga Format gave it a 92. CU Amiga gave it a 96. These are huge scores. The one gave it a 72, and your Amiga gave it an 82. It's an interesting game. I don't know if it's, of course, this, I don't want to say it's not my sort of game, because I could kind of get into it, but I'm going to need a little more time on this one.
Well, over on our Discord channel, we had a couple of user reviews, and they rated it on the whole a little lower than the magazines of the day. Lobsterminator says, awesome concept and ideas that still spark my imagination, sadly ruined by awful controls. Strategy portion is good fun, but every time I need to steer a vehicle, I get frustrated. Yes. One of my top candidates for a soft remake, 6 out of 10.
There you go.
And Chris Folds says, amazing concept and idea that was years ahead of its time. It is sadly not dated well, which makes the action pieces seem cumbersome. Still a groundbreaking title that deserves lots of respect. 6 out of 10, would love to see a reboot.
The funny thing is the action portions of this game where you're shooting and sniping, which is another thing you can do, they're not bad. I mean, I think the Amiga can pull this off, which is why I got such good scores. I think it just is tough.
This is the type of game that should be played on the Amiga. We talk all about, we play a lot of games that, especially later on into the 90s, as the Amiga was so desperate to capitalize on the platformer mascot craze. This is why you bought an Amiga. Games like Midwinter. You're not going to get this kind of an experience on any console. I mean, they just couldn't handle it.
Yeah, the NES didn't get a quarter of this.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
And this takes it, I mean, in a lot of ways, this doesn't take full advantage of what the Amiga has to offer. I mean, clearly it wasn't made here first. That's not, which is a shame, because I think if you make the Amiga version of this first, this is your pilot program, then you can harness more of what the Amiga could do.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you look this up on eBay to see what was going on?
Oh, I did, actually. I did. And guess what? This is going to blow your mind. I found American copies of this boat. I was stunned. to find them. So in the States, you can get just the disc, $12, and you can buy the box copy, $66 or best offer. And in the UK, of course, it's as usual. I found box versions, and now some of these, the cheaper ones, are the value versions and whatnot. $16, $35, $15, $22. Take your pick depending on what you're after. There was Kicks put a version of this out. Like I said, it's include also in some compilations. So you're getting this in a compilation, you're probably getting something pretty good, because that's a pretty straight up good title.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they were able to squeeze all this on one disc, that's probably the answer to the music mystery right there.
Yeah, I also, probably before we quit, I did enjoy the copy protection at the beginning, where you
see, mine skipped entirely over that.
It asks you to identify these people, and it's got, because every person in the game has a picture.
Right.
You got to figure out who they are, and you got to have the book to figure out. So that's pretty clever. And when you do it, it's like, you passed the recognition test or whatever.
Now, Aaron, last week I was feeling under the weather, and
not like today. Not like today. Fired up.
Yeah. As I continue to hack my brains out.
He's gold bricking.
What does that mean?
Gold bricking?
Is that's that Beyonce song, right?
No, that means you're faking it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why would you say gold bricking it? That's like gold bricks are a good thing.
That's a Bobby Heenan gimmick from back in the day. That's a term. Look it up. Okay. I'm old. What do you want? Gold bricking.
We did have some winners, which stunned me, Aaron, because as you recall, last week I just did some beat poetry.
Yeah. There were no winners after that. There were only survivors.
So both Pac Billy and Eric Nelson actually got. I was doing my interpretation of Mike Myers and So I Married an Axe Murderer, and they got it. So Pac Billy, Eric Nelson, you're man among men. What can I say?
That is a beyond obscure.
Yeah, I was not expecting anybody to get it, but Pac Billy was on it like right after the show.
Pac Billy has eerie power.
Eric Nelson had to let it kind of percolate.
Eric has
in the gray matter. We
should talk about Eric real quick. I've been listening to his show. In fact, I'm knee deep into Hoopla here, and they're amassing all sorts of goodies, Spectrum goodies, and it's very entertaining. They actually opened some packages this week, and I got a big kick out of listening to it.
Really?
Yeah, because there was booze included.
Pixel Gaiden, right?
Pixel.
Is that what it's called? Pixel Gaiden?
Yeah. You've literally. I thought that was just an expression you were throwing out. Pixel Gaiden, like the ting. Go ahead.
So this week, if you know this Patreon song, you can send me an email at john@amigospodcast.com. We do want to thank all the people that support the show, whether you support us with a little or a lot or way too much, like some of you. So here we go. Andy, Jones Lob, Sturminator, Craig McClellan, 10-minute Amiga Retrocast, Counting, Virtual Sheep, Bernard, Quinn, Retro Man Cave, Tim Drew, Daniel Williams, Simon Rose, Joseph Harrison, Kyle Eder, Rob O'Hara, Howard Nibbs, Matthew Lara, Moore, Andy Craig, Don Sonso, Darren Lomax, Colin, 4-1 Barkbit, Roland Burke, Andrew Monks, Joe the Zombie, John Cook, Dan Ross, Leaf, Kelland, Alan, Bob, Chicote, Leveler John Marshall, Matthew Perrone, Ricky DeRoche, Creepy Dead Boy, Figgy, CTC, The Slow Norris Stefan, Sorgard Mortensen, Edville and Elland, Blindo 75, Christopher Hassel, Rafa Abbott, Chris Falls, Dreamcatcher, Lauren Shaw, Grant Pepke, Leighton Denson, Adam Battersby, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Gary, Hucker C. Brian Jones, Paul Harrington, Duncan Stiles, Alan Kebab, Tapes from the Crib, Josh Nan, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rouleau, T.H. Chirac, Nelson, Kim, Tommy Humbertstad, Daniel Bingston, Brutal Barracuda, Darren Coles, Jason Warrens, Pixels at Dawn, Kjolbjorn Barman.
You and I got that one.
Good. I'm glad.
No, you're not.
Woman. Whoa, man. Whoa.
This is more beat poetry.
Have you ever seen So I Married an Axe Murderer?
God, no.
That movie introduced me to the Bay City Rollers.
Well, and you like it, do you?
I do.
SATURDAY. That's all they got.
That's right. That's all you need.
That's all they've got. Weren't they like a monkey style band that were put together?
I think so. I think they were from Australia.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. They had like 2 songs, right? What's the other one?
Sunday Night. They cover the whole weekend.
You know, I just remembered something as you were singing that I wanted to mention. Now, in Midwinter was supposedly, I think, was going to have a remake. I did read this. It was posted up as a Kickstarter. It was going to be posted in 2015, and apparently it is dead in the water. That's one thing I wanted to mention. I knew I'd read that. So if you've been waiting patiently for this, it doesn't look good. It's been no news for several years.
That's disappointing.
But so since someone did mention the possibility of it would be a good choice, I think, for a remake, but doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Yeah. I do want to remind all of you that we record this show live every Friday, except for next week when we're not. But we're recording live right now. So if you're not here now, why weren't you? Want to thank 10-minute Amiga Retrocast for joining us in the chat. Retro Tech and Toys, Pixels at Dawn, Michael Ryan, Dazzly, Picard 2005, Lobsterminator X, Barkbit, Henrik H.A. Anderson, Will Williams, Ricky DeRocher, Neville Overman, Michael Ryan, Dylan Gardner, Pixel Vixen. Thank you all so much for joining us in the chat. We really are happy that you're here with us. And we're also happy that you're listening at home whenever you find time. Make sure you check out our sister show, Our Sinclair, and our sort of second cousin twice removed show, ARG Presents.
Well, you're really downplaying that one, aren't you?
ARG is the best show on the network.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Next week we are going to do another, and you love these games. These are public domain. Public
Domania 3?
Yeah, in honor of WrestleMania.
Beautiful.
This weekend.
What do you got?
Scorched Tanks.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
And Super Foul Egg.
Okay. Scorched Tanks, that's another one. Shane R. Monroe. I heard a lot about that one from his show.
Yeah, so it should be a good show.
Yeah.
I always enjoy a good PD. And so we'll see you next week, guys. Until then, adios.